Hello and welcome to The Complete Life with Lisa Thomaides on Cheer FM. Today's guest is Natalie Gold, Bowen Therapy and Reflexology practitioner. She also does wellness counseling.
Hello listeners, a warm welcome to The Complete Life Show. I'm your host Lisa Thomaides and I'm glad that you have tuned in. This show is all about finding peace and well-being through the mind-body-spirit continuum. My hope is we can all take away nuggets of information from all the wonderful people I interview to help us lead our very best lives. Today I'd like to introduce you to Natalie Gold. Natalie grew up in Toronto, and after migrating west to Whistler in 1990, she settled on Salt Spring Island over 27 years ago to start her family. Her brand, Natalie Gold Wellness, encompasses her reflexology, Bowen Therapy, and coaching practice. As Natalie Gold Reflexology, she has been practicing for over 30 years and has seen thousands of feet in over 24 countries. During that time, she's developed a wide range of educational material in person and online, including the Vancouver School of Bodywork and Massage and the Vancouver Career College. Since 2017, she's focused on her private practice. I'd like to have a very warm welcome, Natalie, and thank you so much for taking the time to come to the show. I'm really passionate about what you do, not least because you've given me some very healing sessions with your reflexology, but also because you've really grown your practice to be a truly holistic practice. And I want you to tell us how that's evolved and what you're passionate about, and just share with us what you do, and do bring in the reflexology, because I think lots of people need to hear more about that too.
Great, yeah. Would you like me to start by explaining what reflexology is?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so reflexology is the study of the reflexes. Primarily I work on the feet, but you can also do the hands and ears, which I've also studied, with the intention of restoring the body to homeostasis, equilibrium, reset, what I like to call it.
Yeah, I love it.
Right, so by working, my main practice with reflexology now is working on the feet up to the knees, if you were to see me in my studio. But it impacts the whole body. So even though I'm working on your feet, I'm helping with everything else. So it's a really great modality for people who are uncomfortable with other forms of massage, and especially if they're shy around maybe taking their clothes off, or have trauma around being touched, anything like that. So long as they can tolerate touch from the knee down, they're usually pretty good.
And what's the typical complaint where somebody will reach out to a reflexologist rather than an acupuncture? Like, where's the strength in the reflexology? In what particular conditions that you feel?
Honestly, a lot of people come to reflexology because they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked. And finally somebody said to them, hey, have you tried doing this? Because they know me. I mean, here on our island, luckily we're a very small pool, so most people are aware of what each other do, either in person, like you and I have had the pleasure of doing, or
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, right. So, but a lot of times people come, it's really a huge variety. My biggest success lately, I would have to say, was somebody coming in just to calm their nervous system. They were firing on all cylinders and just wanted to get grounded. And we ended up resolving an issue that they'd struggled with for over 30 years. For over 30 years, they'd had chronic diarrhea.
God.
They hadn't, no, right? They hadn't had a regular bowel movement in over 30 years. And now they do again.
And that's all from reflexology?
Reflexology, some Bowen. We use some Bowen, but yeah, we've been doing reflexology regularly, I want to say, since August. Fairly regular treatments.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the biggest thing I notice is it just, for people who are vibrating really high and bzzz going, it just can help ground you. So, if you do meditation, you're familiar with meditation, right? So that feeling when you've been regularly meditating, how you're just very in touch with yourself. Reflexology brings that up. So for people who are very out of touch with themselves, it can be quite shocking.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's too much, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea for me with reflexology is that your system, is a stream, and there's an energetic stream running through your body. And because we're human, sometimes we're going to be blocked in some places, like a beaver dam, or other places, there's been a flood, so the shores are all washed out and there's no structure. So the idea with reflexology is it's reestablishing an even flow.
Yeah. So I know you do Bowen Therapy. You're a Bowen therapist, and I'm a Bowen therapist. And I want you to just share how, because Bowen Therapy does that too. And here's the thing. There's lots of modalities for finding this place of flow and unblocking our energetic being. And there's no right or wrong. It just depends on each person what they respond and are responsive to. So tell us a little bit about how you integrate reflexology with Bowen Therapy, and then we'll talk about how you introduce it into your coaching practice, because it is very linked. Everything links together beautifully. So
yeah, it definitely has been an organic unfolding of everything that I've done. When the pandemic first hit, of course, and we were home, that was the time for me where I thought, I've got to get lots of education in. Now's the time when you have the time. So I did an ear reflexology course, learning about, where to place ear seeds and stuff. That, while it was interesting and fascinating, it
didn't excite you quite
it didn't
so much.
resonate. I did another course that I've been using quite a bit that talked about mobility and Carr's controlled articulated rotations throughout all the joints. So to apply that to just the feet has been amazing.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what I'm interested in particularly is if you do a little bit of reflexology, do you tend to then offer like half an hour of Bowen Therapy just to bring it into a full circle? Because the Bowen Therapy ignites the parasympathetic nervous system to rebalance basically the body so that your body's healing itself, which is not dissimilar to what reflexology does too.
Right.
But it's a whole body experience.
So when I did the Bowen Therapy, Lisa, I was looking for, I feel like, there's always more to learn in whatever discipline you're in. But
100%.
I've been doing reflexology for 30 years.
Yeah.
I've explored a lot of different ways. I've moved into foot reading. I've done a lot of different things. So I was looking for something that can complement it. So when I came across Bowen Therapy, and I know you know Bowen Therapy as well, Bowen Therapy is really great for those bigger shifts or doing a big reset. But I don't find that it's something that people can come to on a regular basis without there being an underlying condition to treat.
Yeah, because normally like a Bowen session, you'd go for 3 sessions because you've got to let it sit for a week. And usually by the 3rd session, hopefully things have cleared up. I went to Bowen Therapy when I had bursitis, a hip condition which comes from actually hiking uphill. I got it from doing too much hiking. Absolute agony. And everything I did, I adjusted my diet and took turmeric and took wheat out and did all the things that you do, but nothing healed it. This is what I learned to be a Bowen therapist. I was absolutely floored by having, I think it was 2 sessions. And first session, the pain went, but the second session, something else happened because it never came back. Now, that's pretty miraculous for anyone who suffered with bursitis.
Right. Yeah. I remember, because I know we had the same practitioner going for the first time to see what all the fuss was about, because, of course, I'd heard about it from everybody. And basically trying to walk home, couldn't even walk home. It was so bad, but bursting into tears, but lying on my back for half an hour after, and I felt great.
Right.
It was good. So,
yeah.
and then seeing the difference after. And as a therapist, like the work we do, we know there's often the healing crisis where sometimes it
gets
does
a
get
bit
a little
worse before
right?
it gets better. Yeah.
Yeah, but not everybody understands that. So sometimes it gets a little worse and they panic. But how I incorporate it into my reflexology treatments is I always usually do the knee and the foot protocol, which I know you know.
Yeah.
Depending on what else they have going on, I might do the bunion protocol or the hammer toe one. I do a lot of the taping, sometimes at the end. So I always do those ones in with the regular reflexology treatment. And it's kind of segged seamlessly because I do work right up to the knee anyways. So
Right. So that's easy to do.
that's easy to do.
I found also, I went to the Bowen Therapy, and he was very successful at the time of healing my hormonal migraines. Because hormonal migraines can come from the base of the spine, and there's a blockage often from damage from epidurals or accidents in the neck or the back. And a lot of people don't realize that, it's not their hormones that are out. There's an actual blockage in the spine that's causing, through
The
the
dysfunction.
fluctuation
Yeah.
of the hormones, there's a narrowing, and the blood can't pump as fast, and hence you get the migraine. And it was very successful for me to heal them through Bowen Therapy. And this is where I love all the different modalities. You've also helped me with a couple of headaches having reflexology, so that worked as well. And in fact, what I like about reflexology is if you can learn a few of the main points, your therapist can show you how to use those at home, and you can actually do it on each other without having to know and be qualified as a reflexologist.
Right.
And I always love to give people nuggets to take home so they can actually help themselves.
Well, and honestly, reflexology is one of the things that anybody can do on themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So anybody can sit, as long as you can reach your feet. But if you can't reach your feet, you can work on your hands.
And it's an ancient practice, isn't it? I mean, this scope, it's been going for thousands of years. I mean, it just makes sense in many ways how it's approached.
It has. It's been around a long time. And for me, it felt so serendipitous that I came across it when I was in Israel when I was 23. It felt, like being in this place and being introduced to it, as I remember saying, I need to see somebody about my back. It's really sore. Do you have a chiropractor? And I was there studying Hebrew. I'd been there a week, and the woman said, there's a woman and she touches your feet and your neck feels better. And I thought, holy cow, I really have to improve my Hebrew. Because
Yeah, really.
like, what the heck is she talking about? That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those moments, where it changes your life, right? It was
I
a
love that.
life-changing
I love
moment.
that.
And
It's given you a lot.
I've always had, since I was little, a fascination with bodies and how they work in a very clinical sense, to the point where I sometimes get called insensitive because I can see things so clinically. But it's not that I don't feel things, it's just that it's not necessary doing that kind of work.
So leading on to another part of your practice, which I know you're very successful at, and it's more of a recent thing the last few years, is your coaching practice, your therapy for people to help them through their troubles and their blocks that are stopping them leading their best lives.
Right. So just like you mentioned earlier about, you went to see somebody for your hormones, but it ends up actually stemming from a different place. Through my years of doing reflexology, I discovered people come in because they have pain in one place, but it's not always the source, right? It's like, for example, plantar fasciitis is a great example. So many people have plantar fasciitis. They're having symptoms in their feet. It hurts. So they're looking for solutions for their feet. But the problem didn't start in their feet. The foot is a symptom of the problem that's usually up through the back of the leg, deep in the hamstring or even into the hip. So being a reflexologist and recognizing all those connections, and like you say, every time you finish with somebody, you want to give them a take-home. So a huge part of my practice is debriefing at the end.
And there's an emotional connection, so let's not forget that. So you're saying that the plantar fasciitis is in the heel, but it starts in the back of the legs. But let's just talk about what's going on in their lives on a very practical sense.
Well, definitely the bodies are all tied in. When I'm working on a body, I'm working on a physical body, but it's affecting the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, the etherical. All the bodies, right, are being affected, so they're not separate. So in the line of my practice, I'm getting feedback from my hands on what's happening with the feet, but sometimes I get other feedback that's not physical. So it definitely all ties in.
So how do you offer your do you have in your coaching practice, is it very separate to your reflexology, or do you combine them, or do you have programs within your coaching practice that you put people on to support them through something very specific, like a career change or a divorce or...
Right. So it, like I said, it evolved very organically because I found that I was doing coaching anyways. Like what was happening was coaching.
It released people and they'd start talking to you, and then you'd start sharing some wisdom.
All of it. And so what I realized was, even without the therapy part, the physical therapy part, that people would talk and the blocks would be available for me to see. I could hear beyond what they were saying.
That's a gift.
Right. So it's the emotional or talk, the etherical version of having your hands on a body, right? It translates kind of the same way. So I don't have a set program right now because I still love doing the one-on-one. I taught for years and years and years and had a standard program that I would teach people on, but I learned really quickly that, while some people are going to do great on a program, it's not going to be for everybody. And I mean, how lousy is it? I don't know about you, but have you ever bought a program or a course and then not really done it or followed through?
Yeah,
right.
no, for
Because
sure.
for whatever reason, it didn't grab you, right? For me, I want to ensure right now that people are getting what they need. So I offer 12 weeks, usually 1-hour sessions every 12 weeks. And I do one-on-one because right now I'm still finding that the
you
most.
offer a coaching practice to actually give people tools to change so they can shift their life in a direction they want.
For exactly what they need. Because as you know, we're all so unique.
And what do you specialize in specifically? Are you good at relationships? Is it work? Is it health?
Okay, so those are good questions. So I find that we're usually the best at the things we've gone through.
Right.
So for me in my life, I have kids that I've raised fairly successfully. I've had a relationship that I was in, and then I wasn't in a relationship, which was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through.
The most traumatic thing, separation of a family.
Right. And then I've, been in another relationship. So, relationships. I've changed careers, even when, sometimes it's easy when it's the money thing, that everything's in place, but it's sometimes making big changes when all your safety nets aren't in place is a big thing. So I know about making change, even when it's scary and unknown.
Absolutely. So if I'm hearing you right, integrating the body and the pain or any physical problems that are going on in the body through the reflexology and Bowen with coaching through relationship or career change is sort of your speciality.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot when you say it that way.
No, it's not, because that's actually, it's all tied in. That's a holistic approach. There's a whole approach. There's a lot going on, but it opens up the pathways to healing. And then, do you give them homework when they do the coaching?
With coaching, absolutely. I mean, there's always a practice to do because you're setting up new habits for things. A lot of our life we go through and we're living it, and things happen and we react because we've learned or been taught or been conditioned to react a certain way if somebody looks at you this way or says this or does this. So a lot of it is simply unlearning unhelpful conditioning and figuring out which habits really do serve you and which ones are, not worth keeping.
Yeah. And you love your work. You're here on Salt Spring Island, and Natalie Gold is a treasure. You can get hold of her through Navigator for Wellness as well. She's part of that amazing community of practitioners that to make it really easy for people who come to Salt Spring specifically, or who want to seek a practitioner on Salt Spring and maybe do some work online. And of course, coaching is great for that, because I do that myself. I do lots of coaching online. So you can be anywhere in the world and get support from any of the practitioners that offer that service. So would you like to give us some of your details, Natalie, how somebody could reach you if they're interested in what you're offering through this conversation?
Sure. And I really appreciate what you say about how online really is a thing, especially for us living on an island of 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Our pool's pretty small, but it's a big, wide world out there with the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
It's hard not to find me if you're on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm just dabbling
What's your
in
handle?
TikTok. I'm Natalie Gold Wellness, and I have a website, www.nataliegold.com. Basically, you can Google me and find me.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in today, and I'm fascinated with what you do. I love what you do. I honor what you do, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share with our listeners. And hopefully someone listening today it'll tweak them enough to be curious about reflexology or Bowen therapy and coaching, and maybe changing their lives in some small way for the better. If anybody wants to come on the show and speak and share something they feel is valuable to other listeners, you can contact me at figsandhoney@me.com or through this radio show. I'm happy to listen to you and bring you on board to share your story too. So thank you for coming in today, Natalie, and wishing you all the best with your practice.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. This was great.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to The Complete Life with Lisa, produced at the Silly Eagle Studios for Radio Gordon on Salt Spring Island.